already have 7 people signed up in front of you, Mike, but I will get to you if I get through the list. So who had number 2?
It's Glen Koroluk.
Thank you. My name's Glen Koroluk. I'm hearing that you've been advocating against the CAFOs in the Red River Watershed. A bit of my background, I used to be on the board of the Red River Basin Commission, and it's really great to see that they're still active and getting lots of ideas at the table. It's a good organization. And I really want to thank Lance and Caroline for their longevity and for pushing the water agenda in this part of the world. Thank you. So I guess I have one question about the process. A general question for everyone is how can we imagine reducing nutrients at the border and within the entire watershed if we're going to keep expanding CAFOs and ILOs? They're called ILOs in Canada, intensive livestock operations. I just can't see how you could fulfill your mission on reducing nutrients by that amount, up to 50% for nitrogen and for phosphorus. So it's a steep task. But more specifically, in your investigation of those 2 CAFOs in North Dakota, what's the public process? Can we send in comments as the public? Are you going to have hearings or meetings? How will you be gathering your evidence? And also, I want to know what the timeline is on this investigation. And that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
The Manitoba Eco Network. I want to thank the Watershed Board. I want to thank previous questioners. I think they kind of addressed a lot of the questions I have. I'm here with the Manitoba Eco Network, also as part of a coalition of groups on both sides of the Canada-US border that are concerned about these massive dairy and animal feeding operations that are being permitted and proposed. Just to put that in context, we're talking 37,500 animals, so that's about the same number of animals that we have in the entire province of Manitoba, except they're going to be 2 massive concentrated operations rather than spread out over 400. So my question is about the targets. I actually appreciate the nutrient concentration targets that are there. I appreciate the engagement, the letter that we received from NRB engaging on this, on the review from the Watershed Board. And so I was looking at those targets. So I'm going back to your 24th annual progress report from October 2023. So there's an updated one from for a year, but we're talking right now that at current, the nitrogen concentration of the Red River border should be 1.15 milligrams per liter, but they're at almost double that, 2.49 milligrams per liter in 2022. And the total annual nitrogen load is 25% over objective. Just shy of 11,947 tons, when the objective is 9,525. Similarly, the phosphorus, which is the leading factor in suffocation and the suffocation of our lakes, we're looking at 0.15 milligrams per liter at the Red River border, but it's nearly triple that at 0.40 milligrams per liter in 2022. And the average annual load is nearly 70%, 69% over target, just shy of 2,400, 23,366 average tons, and the objective is 1,400 tons. So my question is, how do we intend to build these targets in, to build that into the review, to build that into the cumulative assessment of this review that we're doing? And a lot of the same questions I appreciate the previous questioner asking about how this process is going to roll out and how we can engage and how we can help and how can we be of assistance in that.
Hi, my name is Saul, and I'm the Vice President of the Abercrombie Citizens for Responsible Growth, and appreciate the opportunity to speak from North Dakota. My husband and I live on our family farm just a mile from the 12,500 head Aber Dairy. We are a multi-generational farm and had hoped to pass the farm on to our son. The Aber Dairies, however, threaten our water supply, our air quality, and the ability to live on our family farm. Although the Aber Dairy, even larger 25,000 Herbert Dairy in Trail County north of us, will likely pollute the waters of 2 states and 1 province, no one has heeded our call for an environmental impact statement. I hope that the permit review the IGC has requested you to do will help to fill that gap. I brought some pictures of flooding in the Red River Valley that my colleagues here are going to hand out at this time. I think it shows the magnitude of the massive amount of overland flooding that occurs, and all of you know the destruction that occurs to roads and culverts and everything in its path, and every flood we know is different. We never know where it's going to break out or where it's going to flood. Along with that, we don't know how the new diversion is going to affect the flooding north of Fargo, because it's going to protect Fargo, but we don't know how that's going to affect the Herbert dairy, the larger dairy north of Fargo. And you must remember always that these dairies are each less than 2 miles from the Red or major tributary. The 311 million gallons of untreated waste per year will be stored in lagoons equal to 60 American football fields, with slurry in the lagoons 20 to 25 feet deep. Again, less than 2 miles from the Red River. What would happen if one or more of those lagoons were to overflow or to fail? There would be massive amounts of nutrients, bacteria, hormones, antibiotics, and other animal ag waste entering the Red River and Lake Winnipeg. We in Abercrombie have talked to our neighbors. We have organized. We have spoken to multiple local boards, multiple elected officials, hired technical experts, and consulted lawyers. We have almost 500 signed petitions in the effort to have some say about the impact this huge project will have on our community. How may we share this information with you so that you may get the most complete picture of this massive project? And would you accept written comments from colleagues who are unable to attend today?
My name is Madeline Luke, and I'm speaking as a member of the Dakota Resource Council. Thanks for having me. We asked that in your permit review, you consider the extensive background materials that Riverview submitted, as well as the regulatory activities involving existing CAFOs in North Dakota. 37,500 cows produce the same amount of waste as the city of Ottawa. CAFOs of this size require careful siting consideration, rigorous planning for waste management, and robust water quality monitoring to guide the enforcement of standards. And on all 3 counts, we fear that the present permitted plans are insufficient to protect our common waters. 314 million acres of waste will be stored and then spread annually on almost 50,000 acres of cropland in the Red River Watershed. We flood frequently, and this summer we also had torrential winds. This will likely worsen with climate change, and there are a danger to the lagoon failure. 11% of the Herbert site is actually in the 100-year floodplain. In 2024, ABC News described the floodwaters in an Iowa CAFO-rich area as quote-unquote beacon soup. The nutrient management plans are incomplete, as noted by Abercrombie's own agronomist and an agronomist hired by the DRC. Extensive natural streams and drains in the manure fields are a direct conduit for rapid entry of excess nutrients to the river. One Wisconsin study noted that a addition of 1 CAFO to one HUC region led to a 1.7 increase in phosphorus and a 2.7% increase in ammonia levels. As 2,000 acres of land is part of the Herbert nutrient management plan, waste must somehow cross the river to Minnesota every year. Any equipment failure, for example, the 2025 pump problem, which spilled 80,000 gallons, can be disastrous to the receiving water problem. Water quality monitoring and enforcement standards is necessary. However, drainage from the sites is currently exempt from any evaluation of downstream effects, and no discharge monitoring is required at any of the legal drains passing through the manure fields. Furthermore, there were instances where violations of the nutrient management plan or water quality standards were ignored. These are just some of the concerns deserving of your serious examination. How may we best contribute to your efforts so that you get a complete picture? Thank you for your time.
That will be the conclusion of our speakers too.
Hello, my name's Vicki Burns, and I'm with the Save Lake Winnipeg project, and I just thank you very much for the opportunity to attend this meeting and to have some input. I think lots of the questions that I have already been asked or will be asked, but what I'm wondering about is, to me, the crux of the problem here related to Lake Winnipeg is the excess nutrients that will come from 37,500 more dairy cows in tight confinement, with all of that manure having to be applied to the land every single year. And just to remind you, it's actually 52 Canadian-sized football fields at a depth of 20 feet. That needs to be applied every year. Now, I just wonder, are you able to assess what crop, how much nutrient crops can take up, even in the best circumstances, because we know that there is, I believe, no crop that can take up all the nutrients that are available in that amount of manure every year. And the nutrients that are not taken up by the crop become available to runoff in various ways, through floods, through snow melt in the spring, which is always going to happen, through heavy rainstorms, which are exacerbated now by climate change. So, to me, what's really important is to start to be very specific about how much nutrient can possibly be used in that amount of land by whatever crop is going to be grown. And then we can kind of be scientific about what amount is not going to be used and what amount of that will end up running off. The results to Lake Winnipeg will be catastrophic because the blue-green algae is already a huge, huge problem. Anyway, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you, and I'll look forward to your reports. Thank you.
Pointed, I guess, in regards to seeing what's happening here. I'm very grateful to be a part of this be part of this gathering here to see firsthand. I guess I've been wanting to participate here for a while now, but I don't see any First Nation Indigenous participation whatsoever. Current level of collaboration, no communication to our communities in the north around Lake Winnipeg, where the majority of the impacts are going to be felt. We live there. We drink that water, or we used to. We hunt, trap, fish, gather there. How long can we keep doing that? We've experienced extensive flooding in our community for half a century, all man-made by agricultural practices, drainage systems. We've experienced hundreds, possibly thousands of blue baby syndrome deaths because of high nitrate levels content in our drinking water. And it's all gone unchecked. Nobody's done nothing about it. And we fight every day to protect our people. But yet we see what's happening south of the border. And no participation or even coming to our communities to let us know what's going on. If this commission is really sincere about what they want to do in the protection of the environment, what about protecting the people that are going to be directly impacted by the impacts to Lake Winnipeg? Because we live there. And as I've seen over the last decade in working in this field, a lot of decisions are made by people that don't live in the impacted areas. People that has to change. You have to come to our communities. You have to understand the impacts. We're human too. We bleed. Our blood is red. We go to school every day. We raise children. We pray to the same God as many of you guys do. But yet nobody comes to our communities to look at how we're impacted and the lives are how are impacted. And that has to change if we're going to move forward in this day and age, especially with all this technology. Thank you. Be well.
For coming out to the public meeting today. I know we did not have the opportunity, just given the time, to answer some questions. We can, ma'am. I don't know where we're at on time. But what I would like to offer, right, because it was rather quick. We can offer some themes about the way forward. But the first, so I've got one of our secretaries, Rebecca, is off to the side. I'm gonna give an email out, and you were asking where can we send information? How can we contribute? A good place would be to send any sort of documentation, thoughts, concerns to the following email address. We don't have it on the board, but it is located on our website. The email address is IRRWB, so the International Red River Watershed Board, at boards.ijc.org. Again, that's IRRWB at boards.ijc.org. I've also got Rebecca and Gurma, our other secretary, who can assist in consolidating some of that information. Just to kind of recap, and I'll hand over to Ute as well. The board continues to kind of scope the problem a little bit. I think that's the first part. So your input is going to be very important to understand one aspect of this. And then the board is also looking at, and we'll discuss with the IJC, potentially some studies that we can do looking for assessing those impacts, right? I mean, at the end of the day, our charter here is to evaluate water quality, water quantity, and aquatic ecosystem health. So your input and value is valuable to understanding some of it's cultural, for example, sir, and local. And we also have opportunities as a board to come out to certain areas and visit and see some of the impacts. So as an opportunity, last year we did happen to go visit the mega dairy, or not excuse me, not mega dairy, but one of the Riverside, I believe, dairies located in Minnesota, just to kind of understand, right? So that is one perspective, but we need to continue to get out and do engagements. We've done First Nation engagements as well, and then we'll continue to plan those. So if you'd like to if there's something you would like the IJC to be aware of in this board, again, a good conduit would be to send a note to that email as well. So I'll pass it over to you, Tay. She may have some additional thoughts, and then we can also let the commissioners add some thoughts as well.
Great, thanks, Colonel Chase, and just wanted to express our gratitude for sharing your perspectives and the information that you shared with us. I think that is really important, and I think understanding that there's some really good information out there that people do want to share with us. As Colonel Chase said, there is that opportunity, and we will follow up with those of you who wish to give us further insights so that we can receive that feedback from you. Just going back quickly with respect to our current process. So the International Joint Commission did ask the board specifically to look at these two proposed projects and look at whether during the permitting process, whether there was sufficient recognition of the aquatic ecosystem health and water quality of the Canada-US border. So our parameters are somewhat defined in terms of the scope of the work, and so just wanted to add that extra clarification. But I don't want to dismiss or say that doesn't mean we can't take additional information. Like, all of that is part of our information gathering stage, and really understanding in a holistic way in terms of the kind of factors and impacts and so forth. So looking forward to those other submissions. And there was some other questions that were asked of us today. Unfortunately, we don't have sufficient time, and I think in some cases we don't necessarily have the answers yet. That's part of the work that we're undertaking. And hopefully, as part of this process, where that'll lead us then is looking at the basin. I mentioned earlier, in terms of, we do need a better understanding of what's going on at the basin scale and all these various aspects, right? We can't just look at things in isolation. So that's part of the process that we're undertaking. And then I think in the near term, we are going to be reporting back to the International Joint Commission in terms of our initial findings, but that doesn't necessarily mean we stop there, right? I think that does inform future work of the board. So with that, commissioners, is there anything else you want to add?
So one of the things I want to remind everybody, that the Boundary Waters Treaty is set up so that both countries can figure out how to solve problems together to the benefit of both countries. So this is a good example of where it gets sticky. And so we're taking that seriously at the commission. We understand what our role is and what it's not. And there's always processes involved in this stuff when you involve government. And we're looking for the best way to move through that process to, again, at the end of the day, what we want to see is a clear Lake Winnipeg. I mean, that's still everybody's big picture goal. And Marilyn can talk more about some of the details of that.
So in addition to what the Canadian chair said about what we asked the board to look at, we also asked them to look at this issue within the context of cumulative effects, and to get directly, I think, at either Glenn or James's question about, and in the broader context of nitrogen and phosphorus objectives, how could we see meeting those as if these kinds of facilities move ahead and operate over time. The reason we ask that is because this is a watershed board. It's not just about what the number is at the border. It's about what Canadians do in the Canadian side of the watershed. It's also what Americans do on the American side, and how that affects the entire watershed. So it's a 360 look. It's not just CAFOs. It's CAFOs for sure, but within a broader context. And that's where all forms of knowledge matter to the person from PEGOS,
since we've been on the commission, Lance and I and the other commissioners have worked very hard to try to increase the involvement of Indigenous nations, Métis, First Nation tribes on actual boards, so you have your own voice there directly. It's not mediated through anyone else. And for traditional knowledge to play a very equal, significant role in conversations. I think there's still a ton of progress we need to make in terms of like your idea of, are you notifying people all around the lake about these meetings? I think that's an area that we could improve, that the board could improve, and IJC generally, so thank you for that comment. Keep in mind though, at the end of the day, we are a recommending body only. The decision makers on whether anything needs to change are the governments. Your direct source, we can provide reports that have say one thing or another. We do that based on the best information we have. But it will be up to the state and provincial and federal governments to do something about this. And so I have to always say that is probably your strongest line of conversation at any time, right? Okay, thanks.
Just a word of hope at the end. One of the things that's caught my attention lately is our Rainy Lake of the Woods Board is dealing with some of the same issues. And they've kind of identified where it's coming from, and they've sort of got this, we think if we keep doing what we're doing now, here's a target date where we think we'll get the lake below the levels we want. That's a joint target that everybody has grabbed a hold of. What I'm hoping we can do on the Red River is something like that. Let's start to, I was really engaged in some of the presentations about all the things people are doing, how much phosphorus are taken out. We as a group need to say, okay, how do we get to that place where the lake is where we want it, and how long will it take us to get there? Let's keep going there. When you look at our exceedance report, we got work to do. So, but the word of hope is there is a way to do it, and if we do it together, we have a better chance of getting there.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming out to today's public meeting for the Red River Board. Again, you have the email. If you have any additional documents or questions, you can send it there, and we'll be responsive as we can. All right, thank you.